Hey guys, my name is Andrea. Most of you probably already know that. I'm going to apologize in advance because this is a little awkward for me. I don't ever make videos of myself talking, and I'm not a very good public speaker, so you're going to have to kind of bear with me because I'm probably not going to look at the little camera lens the whole time, like right now. I have some notes written down. I'm going to probably say and repeat myself and maybe backtrack a little bit. Just be patient. I'll maybe get better the more I do this, which this is going to be probably at least, I don't know, maybe 5 videos. Kind of see how it's received, and maybe more, maybe less. This first video is really just going to be about what keto is. A lot of you have seen, well, most of you have seen me post, which I was kind of hesitant about to begin with, but have seen me post about my weight loss success over the past 6 months, which 6.5 now. And I'm gonna start out by saying, gotta adjust my camera, sorry. I'm gonna start out by saying that keto, or the ketogenic diet, I'm gonna refer to it as keto, so keto is not for everyone. It is not for diabetics, although a form of keto or a form of low-carb, high-fat diet can work for some diabetics. Type 1, it's particularly dangerous to get your body into the state of ketosis, which we'll talk about in a minute, because the body already doesn't produce insulin as it should, and the pancreas doesn't process sugar and stuff like that. So it can be particularly dangerous for someone with diabetes to attempt a ketogenic diet. So I'm going to preface all of this by saying I am not a dietitian. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I just happened to research a lot after first hearing about the ketogenic diet, and just want to share my knowledge. I encourage you to seek out other information other than what I give you. I encourage you to find a keto forum to talk about keto, or ask other people on the grand wide world web. Sorry, let me back up. The grand world wide web, and ask them your questions. I'm not going to know everything. I am open to questions, and I am always up for learning more about the ketogenic diet. So if I can't answer you, I will attempt my very best to find the answer for you. So again, I apologize in advance because it's going to be awkward. I'm going to repeat myself. I just know it. And if you happen to hear a dog bark or you hear a kid's movie, just keep in mind I am the average mom, and we are all busy, although that probably wasn't even necessary for me to put in here. So, to get started, I was first introduced to the ketogenic diet by a good friend of mine. We've known each other for probably about 12, 13 years now. And he told me about keto probably, if I'm being honest, back in November or December, and I just didn't listen to him. He had some really good success. He still has success with it. And the more he told me about it, the more I realized that it might be a good fit for me. Complete, open, transparent disclaimer. I'm very, very busy. I work full-time. I go to school full-time. I raise a 2-year-old. Getting to the gym has always been a struggle for me. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I really hate going to the gym. There's a million other things I would rather do in this world than go to the gym. One point in my life, that was what I was into, and I was very into working out, but that part of my life is way past. So keto really appealed to me because it wasn't something that necessarily you have to work out with to get results. It, as with any other diet, or let me back up and say that keto is not necessarily a diet. It's more of adapting a new way of eating. But if I say diet, just excuse me. Diet in this context is really just talking about what food you eat. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're calorie restricting or eating low fat. Just is the term that we're going to use to describe the food that you eat, or whatever your meal plan is. So keto really appealed to me because unlike any other diet that I had tried or heard of, it's not necessary to work out. Again, it's always encouraged, but for most people who have a good bit of weight to lose, and even people who don't have a lot of weight to lose, when you start restricting the foods that you're eating in the way of carbohydrates, which we're going to get to all that, your body is forced to swap fuel systems and what it burns for energy. So when my friend told me about keto, I was 2 months into a new job, was very much on the highest end of my weight that I've ever been, and I was very unhappy with myself. That's not to say that your self-worth or anything like that should ever be counted as a number on the scale, but let's face it, most people feel that way at some point in their life, especially almost middle-aged women who, are popping out babies, or, they don't have the girlish figure they once had. So I decided to do some research about keto and figured that I didn't have anything to lose. And for me, it wasn't so much about weight loss, although it's been a huge bonus. I feel better than I've felt in years and years and years. But for me, it was more about trying to teach myself how to have healthier eating habits. I'm not saying that you always have to deprive yourself of all the good things in life, like ice cream or pizza or anything like that. In fact, on the keto diet, you can have all of that. It just has to be made with a few modified ingredients. But I had adapted some very, very unhealthy eating habits. Instead of sitting down with a serving size of Doritos, I'd sit down with a whole bag. And it's not something, those habits were not something that I wanted to pass on to my son. I have battled with weight my whole life. There was a point in time where it wasn't so much of a battle because I had managed to get my weight down enough to enlist in the Army. And it wasn't like I was super obese, but again, I just did not want to pass on those unhealthy eating habits to my child. So keto was the right fit for me, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I started in January 16th, I started keto, and I hit it full force. I was tracking all of my macros, which again, we're going to get to everything that I'm talking about. We're going to get to all of that. But I was tracking my macros, and I was 100% devoted to it. I'm still 100% devoted to it. It's just I've reached a point where I don't necessarily have to track anymore. Within the first 2 weeks, I had lost 15 pounds. As with any low-carb, high-fat diet or any variation of it, those first 2 weeks you're going to see, or you should see, if you're doing it correctly, a significant amount of weight loss. Unfortunately, most of that is water weight, and once you get those first 10, sometimes people lose 20 pounds of water weight. Once you get those out of the way, it tends to slow down, but you know when keto is still working for you, even if the numbers on the scale aren't going down necessarily as fast as you would like them to. So I have probably talked enough about myself, and if any of you are still watching this, I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes. Maybe not the potatoes, because I'm sorry to tell you, potatoes are off limits with keto in any form or fashion. So the ketogenic diet, as I said before, keto for short, is a low-carb, high-fat diet whose sole purpose is to induce ketosis in the body. The average person's diet consists of a lot of carbs. And I say a lot because for me, now that I've been eating like this for so long, anything more than what I'm having is a lot of carbs. But the average person eats about 300 to 400 carbs a day. And what happens to carbohydrates when you eat them is that they turn into glucose in the body, and that's what your body burns as its primary fuel source. That's why if you eat a bag of Skittles or you drink a Coke, you get that sugar gets into your body, and you have this bam, huge burst of energy, but it's very short-lived, and you, depending on how much sugar you ate, tend to crash afterwards. So the point of keto is to, again, induce ketosis, which ketosis is where you deprive your body of carbohydrates to the point that it is forced to switch fuel sources. The human body is a very resilient machine, and it can operate on a variety of different fuels, but the main one is glucose for the average person. So when you shift your body's fuel source to ketones, ketones break down the fat that normally your body would store because it's burning glucose instead of fat. And these ketones break down fat so that the fat and any reserves of fat that you have on your body is what's burned as fuel. So a lot of people confuse keto with the Atkins diet. And while it's really similar to the Atkins induction phase, that's kind of where it falls off. The Atkins diet has a higher allowance for carbohydrates in the diet, but with keto you really want to keep it to about 70% fat, moderate, maybe about 20% protein, and about 5% carbs. And now that I've finished, I realize that I'm missing 5%, so I'm going to back up, and that should be 75% fat, and then about 20% protein, 5% carbs. And most people who stick to the keto diet try to keep their carbs, their daily carb intake, at 20 grams of carbs or under for the day. And there's multiple different ways that you can account for your carbs in your diet. Some people count total carbs, some people count net carbs, and we're going to get into all of that in a video or two down the road whenever we start talking about how to track and what macronutrients are and everything like that. But if you think it's going to be super difficult and there's a lot of information coming at you and you're kind of lost with whenever you Google ketogenic diet, it's not as difficult as it sounds. And you don't deprive yourself as much as you think you might. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that the first 2 weeks are easy. Of course, it varies for everyone. The first 2 weeks for me were terrible. I was and still am a sugar addict. So I had headaches. I was dizzy. I was exhausted because my body is being forced to shift fuel sources. But once you get past that first week or two, depends on really how strict you are with it and how much you don't allow yourself to cheat, those symptoms pass very quickly. I would say probably by the middle of the second week, I was learning to really control my sugar cravings or my cravings for potatoes and bread and everything like that. So I like to joke with people when they say, well, what can and can't you eat? Basically, you can't eat most of the good things in life. Like you can't, on keto, you can't have regular bread. And I say regular because there are ketogenic bread recipes. I haven't myself tried any because, to be completely honest, I am too lazy to bake anything. Although I have all the ingredients, and I always tell myself that I'm going to make a loaf of bread this weekend, and I never do because I've just learned to live without the bread. So bread, potatoes, sugar, pastas, basically anything with flour or, this is going to sound silly, but carbs. Okay, sorry, I'm probably in a different position than I was. I think I'm with the baby. But what I was saying before I left, not that you'll know that I left until I watch the video. Keto, you don't necessarily have to deprive yourself of. When I said all of the good things in life, again, I was just talking about breads and pastas and stuff like that. Things that people eat multiple times a week, if not multiple times a day, that can really cause your body to store a lot of excess calories and fats and energy, basically. You don't deprive yourself of all of the good things, though, because with keto, as with other low-carb, high-fat diets, picture this, all the bacon you want and all the cheese. Milk is kind of off limits. Milk is actually very off limits because it has That's what lactose is. Lactose is sugar. But heavy cream, cream cheese, sour cream, eggs, any kind of meat, seafood, green veggies in particular, all of that stuff you can still have in your diet. And again, all of the normal comfort foods that you're kind of hesitant about sacrificing can be made in a ketogenic way. It just takes a little bit of practice. It takes some effort in the kitchen, probably more time than you may be willing to devote to it. And of course, some modified ingredients. But it is possible. For me, I just stick with the basics. Like if we're having tacos, instead of buying taco shells, I will make taco shells out of cheese, which is basically we just get to bake this giant cup of cheese and then shape it into a shell. It cools off and it is the best, excuse me, I have something in my eye, but it is the best taco you've ever had. Probably. I don't know your taco life. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot more in this video that I really want to touch on, except to say I didn't really finish my experience and my journey with keto earlier when I was talking about what introduced me, why I do keto. I mentioned that I've been following a ketogenic way of eating for about 6.5 months now, and the success that I've had with weight loss and with learning to control my cravings and to stop eating when I'm not hungry. That was actually one of the biggest differences that I noticed immediately when starting a ketogenic diet, is that when I would usually eat dinner or really any meal, I would eat to the point to where I was so full it almost hurt to move afterwards, and then I would be exhausted because my body's just overloaded with all these carbs it's trying to process and it's storing all this fat, and it was just not a good thing. And I would hazard a guess that probably a lot of you overeat, and that's not an insult, that's just saying that you probably don't, at this point in your life, if you've been overeating for a while and it is obviously a normal habit now, you might not even realize that you're overeating until you get to the point to where you're so full you can't move. So the biggest adjustment for me with keto, or the biggest positive, one of the biggest positives, is I have learned to eat and then stop when I'm hungry, or when I'm not hungry anymore. And it has become way more natural than walking around hurting all the time. And that's not a feeling that I miss at all, like overstuffing myself. And then you walk around and you feel like sausage. But not only with that, keto has helped me. I'm not tired in the afternoons anymore. There's some days where I have to drink 2 cups of coffee depending on what time I go to bed the night before. But in general, I used to fall asleep at my desk every morning. By 10 o'clock, I was dozing off because my body did not have a sustainable or fuel source, because sugar is just not sustainable. It is like lighting a fire and you pour lighter fluid on the wood to get it lit, and that lighter fluid burns off really fast, but the wood is the fuel, and that's what keeps burning and burning and burning. So when you look at a ketogenic diet, the easiest way to think about it is sugar or carbs is the lighter fluid, and ketones or fat, the process of breaking down fat by ketones, is the wood. It, again, is a way more sustainable fuel source. A lot of people experience in the first week dizziness and maybe a little bit of cloudiness as far as thought goes, but all of that clears up, and I haven't thought this clearly, and that is not philosophical or metaphorical. I mean literally, I have not been able to sit down and think as clearly as I can now without my head being all muddled with, being tired and everything, in a long time. So when I started 6.5 months ago, I wasn't expecting the amount of weight loss that I have experienced, but when I started on January 16th, it's going to be kind of embarrassing, I weighed 249 pounds. I was a size 20, probably almost a size 22, depending on what kind of pants I was wearing. I wore a 2X shirt, in women's. Actually, I bought 2X shirts in men's or unisex shirts as well, just so I could be comfortable. I did not like tight clothes. Now, part of that is because I've had a kid, and whenever you incubate this person for so long, other things touching you, just anyways. So 249 pounds. As of present day, I am 182 pounds. Today is actually July 3rd. So right at 6.5 months, maybe a little bit over, give or take a few days. But I'm 182 pounds as of this morning. I recently bought a pair of size 14 jeans that are already pretty baggy. I'm wearing a large shirt in women's. This shirt that I'm wearing now is an extra large, and it used to be tight on me. And I don't want you to think that keto is the only way to reach any kind of weight loss goal, and I also don't want it to be perceived as maybe like the easiest way, because there is parts of keto that make it difficult, as with any other thing. But if you're looking for something that doesn't require supplements, or maybe doesn't require working out, or drinks that you have to drink, or protein shakes, or anything like that, this isn't an infomercial, and I'm not inviting you to pay me for anything. This is just me sharing information that's available to anyone who has access to the internet, or any kind of books, you know, involving keto diets or low carb, high fat. But it works if you stick to it right, and you allow yourself the opportunity to work past the hard part in the beginning. I am confident that keto can help just about anyone. So I think I'm probably going to wrap this particular video up. I'm probably running it close to 20 minutes if I'm not over by now. I invite you to share this with your friends, and this is not a please like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that's not what this is for. This is just me sharing information that is too much to type over and over, even if I copy and paste. Even just the initial putting all of it out in text is a little overwhelming. So I plan on making at least a few more videos, because I want to talk about macronutrients. I want to talk about how to count your carbs, net versus total, you know, where we're subtracting fibers and sugar alcohols. I want to talk about maybe like a general idea for those of you starting out, what you could expect with a successful meal plan. I want to talk about how to find your macronutrients, or what you should be eating. There's tons of information that I want to give you, but again, it's not as complicated as it seems. So if any of you have any questions, let me know, and I will try to address them in the next video. I'm not sure when it's going to be, hopefully sometime this week, but we're all pretty busy. So let me know what I can do for you. I hope this helps some of you out. Even if you don't take all of your information from me, I hope it at least gives you the motivation and the gumption to find out more information for yourself, because again, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, but I believe in the ketogenic way of eating. So with that, I hope to see you guys later. Again, if you have any questions, just shoot me a message. If it takes me a minute to get back to you, no worries, I will get back to you. And anyways, bye.